No, I can't recall the day your dream became my life. I've lived an eternity with you by my side. You by my side. Like the sun and the moon, I've seen that your light reflects mine. And riding together we have conquered the skies. But for so long I failed to see the truth as I searched for a fantasy that lived within you. Said, how did you know that you'd be my angel when your wings were draped into my heart? Where did you see that we would be?
Hello, I'm Shane Schultz from Serenely Speaking, and this is the Arisen Strength podcast. Folks, we do this show because we feel there are far too many dreams, talents, and capabilities that are being suppressed for whatever reason. Whether it be injury, illness, or life experiences, these situations have a way of finding us being robbed of what it is that makes us special and unique in this world, our passions. Here at Arisen Strength, we encourage people to pursue their passions in spite of the challenges they face. Now, how we do that is with our three-pillar concept. Number one, we support. Number two, we empower. And after all that work, number three, we've got the right to celebrate. Folks, that's the Arisen Strength concept. Our goal is to help bring back the passions of life to you again. Tonight on episode 23, we're going to be talking about how we value ourselves. And this is part of our new series of shows, of which deals with suicide prevention and awareness, hashtag life is worth living. But before we get started, let me go ahead and introduce you to my good friend, Wayne the Hack Hacker. Wayne, how you doing tonight?
Hey Shane, doing great tonight. Thanks a lot for having me here again. It's always a pleasure to be able to sit down with you and talk about these topics. And we cover a wide range of topics, and some of them are a little bit harder to talk about than others. Some of them are a lot more fun to talk about. This is one that's actually a tough series to talk about. This is the Life is Worth Living, as you mentioned, suicide awareness and prevention. We had a great interview in our Arisen Strength Extra with Claudia Israel, who that was in episode 22. It was the Arisen Strength Extra. That went along with episode 22, and that's a great interview there that everybody should go back and listen to. And this is just a really exciting series because I think we're covering an important topic, and we have a lot of partners with us this time. And this whole series of 4 shows is the second of the 4, right. And we got a lot of other partners with us, and so that makes it even that much more exciting. And we're going to be talking about, as you said, how we value ourselves, how we can value ourselves. And that cuts right into one of our foundations. We have our 3 pillars, but we also have our 3 foundations, and one of them being not acceptance.
That's one of them.
And that's foundation.
There's acceptance. There's self-esteem.
And the self-esteem foundation is the one that we think of, that we also include ownership and accountability. Right? Because that's how you build that. To our way of thinking, that's one way, or a useful way, of building self-esteem. It's building self-esteem that's based on something by taking ownership for your actions and being accountable for your actions, and and really taking pride in who you are.
Absolutely.
And then you build some real value there, and that's value now that you carry with you, that the people you encounter in your life, they sort of pick up on that value, and they begin to value you too.
Yeah, absolutely. And then on top of it, what it does is it leads you to the third foundation, which is the power of turning the thought. And that's when things really start to happen. And that's when we just sit back and we watch, and we watch and see what it is that somebody is truly capable of doing again. This show is a big one. It's a one that anybody who has been on the verge of suicide or of taking one's life, because that's basically what it is. I don't, like I said in the last show, I don't use suicide a whole lot because I like to break things down to reality. The reality of the situation is that you are making a decision to take your own life off of this earth. And so, to make that decision, it doesn't just happen right off the bat. Generally, there's some things that go on over a period of time that lead you there. One of them is the way that we value ourselves, the way that we look upon ourselves, is to where, let's face it, if you have made the decision as to where taking your life is an option, then you're really not valuing what it is that you are on this earth. And so we need to be able to make sure that we get through the distortions of what is in our mind when it comes to this challenge that we have, and we need to make it reality so that it doesn't lead us to that path. I always talk about when it comes to taking one's life, there's a path there. It's like a magnetized path, as to where once you get on it, it's very difficult to get back off. So we want to keep people from getting to that point.
Yeah, and that requires you to challenge your thinking. This is related to term the thought. You have to acceptance is a big part of that, where you have to, at each step of the way, you have to have a really good sense of where you are. Because as you said, once you start down one of these paths, if you're not careful, you just end up somewhere where, if you're not paying attention, in a real deep, dark place, a place where it's very, very difficult to get out of, where you start thinking of not only suicide as an option, but a lot of times as your only option. Sometimes you might think, oh, this is my best option, but there's these times you can get to where it's my only option. And once you're thinking that way, it's really, really difficult to pull someone out of that, because they're so stuck in their thinking at that point.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that goes through somebody's mind, and I know this because I've been there a number of times, one of the things that go through somebody's mind when you're at that point of making that decision is that you end up getting to that threshold of that path. And then next thing you know, you feel like you have to make a decision one way or another. And it's either, yes, I commit myself to take my own life, or no, I don't. And then I guilt myself over a period of time for not doing it. And I start taunting myself within my mind, well, why didn't you do it? It's like, are you know that things are not right, so you wanted to do it, but now you're scared to do it or whatever. The next thing you know, you end up getting pushed back to that path again. It's like a demon in my mind, and it comes from, where all this came from was the poem of Arisen Strength, and that's the motivational piece that I wrote a little while ago, and and I talk about it as a demon, because it's something that literally is in my mind. That's literally a voice that's within my mind. It's not that I hear voices, it's just that it's a voice that's there, that I put it there, and it will bring me to the path of destruction. And that's something that we are trying to keep people from getting to, because that's very, very important.
Yeah, that's about a 5-minute piece. That's the Arisen Strength Concept and Mission, and available on YouTube. It's really worth listening to. It kind of, really brings to life this that darkness that a lot of us face, whether it leads to suicide or not. But a lot of us face that darkness that we have to try and get out of. And one of the things that gets us out of there, as really revealed in that poem, that spoken piece, is purpose. Having that purpose there, that's sort of the lighthouse that keeps you away from that dark path of where suicide is an option or an only option, because a lot of times there's a loss of purpose. Without that purpose, then there's no way to build value. I mean, I shouldn't say no way, but it's very difficult to build value if you don't have purpose. But you come over here and you have a purpose that's kind of out there, that's leading you. You can build value by working toward your purpose, and that keeps you off that path of where now suicide is an option, an only choice. And at the same time, you're building value in yourself. You're building self-esteem. You're being accountable for your actions. You're taking ownership for your actions. That's your purpose. That's you're working toward your goals. And there's a feedback, just like there's a darkness feedback. There's a sort of a golden feedback over here where things get better and better and better.
Well, and you can tell in the written piece that I did, and it's also in audio with the slideshow. You can tell how everything starts to turn. There's a point in time as to where I literally asked my demon. I said, "Okay, what is it that you're going to do to me now?" Because I fully expect that there's something else that's going to be coming after me that's going to make me want to hate myself that much more. And so I fully asked the demon. I said, "Look, you can be honest with me. We both know that you got something else in store for me." And the way that I put it is that the demon didn't have anything. And the demon basically was saying, I gave everything that I got at you so far, and you're still here. And when I realized that, that's when reality came into play. That's when it was like I wasn't distorted anymore. I wasn't automatically giving it more power than what it is that it already had. And so next thing you know, you could see the momentum really pick up right onto the end of the motivational piece, and that's really what I wanted to do, was to show that once I started getting into the reality of the situation, once I started valuing myself and I started seeing purpose, next thing you know, hey, I wasn't beatable, and so now not only was I not beatable, but now I'm coming after the demon from keeping other people underneath the same suppression that I was under.
And the one important lesson that at least that we have to remind ourselves of as we do this is that this purpose, this goal, is not something that's going to happen overnight. No. It's not going to happen all at once. It's going to happen incrementally in steps. And as we work toward our purpose in life, we're going to sort of build that value. And part of it here, what we're talking about, we have the Arisen Strength podcast here, right? We do the video podcast here. And over time, we've expanded it a little bit. We bring in interviews, so the program is getting a little richer in that direction. We've included a website now. We've included some blogs that we have going on. We have chat rooms, so we have some different things that we're adding on sort of incrementally, and then trying to get it all to work together. And now we're including, there's a new thing coming up here, the Speaking to the Heart Radio Network.
Yeah.
So we're going to have bringing more people into the fold, essentially, right? It's not just going to be Shane and Wayne talking to you, but we're going to be bringing in some other exciting people. The Lupus Diva. We're going to be bringing Angela Harding from Rustic Life.
Josephine Coco in regards to humor. We're going to talk about Gina D. Gina D is going to be doing a show with me, we're going to be doing a whole lot of different things. We're going to be talking about fitness. We're going to be talking about nutrition. We're going to be talking about motivation. We're going to talk about accountability. Wayne and I have a program that we've got in store as an accountability group. We're going to be talking about humor with Josephine Coco. She's a blast. And we've got more things underway that we're not going to start off with, but we've got them back in, ready to come on board. So, there's a lot of things that are going on, and it's called Speaking to the Heart Network. Now, actually, this is underneath my other company, which is Serenely Speaking. But it just so happens that we met a whole lot of people with Arisen Strength, and it ended up making it that much stronger of a cast that is going to work out really great. And we're going to be doing a launch party on October 25th, which is going to be Sunday. It's going to be a week from this coming Sunday at 7:30 p.m. We're going to, play some music. We're going to just enjoy each other's time, at Blog Talk Radio, which is where the channel is going to be featured. And, we're just going to have a good time, and we're going to go from there. And I think it's really going to make a difference in a lot of people's lives. Yeah,
and we're not trying to do it in one day. This is a long-term plan, and we're just, starting to roll it out. And I think it's going to be, it's definitely going to be something that's going to keep us busy for the foreseeable future.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So so we have, but having that purpose, and not letting the purpose become the enemy, right? You don't want to be beaten down by your purpose. Your purpose is this thing that's out there in our lives. We have this purpose, but the idea is not to get to attain that today or tomorrow. That's that thing that's drawing us out, and along the way, we're doing incremental things, and that's where we're building the value. We're building reward. We're taking the time to celebrate, to recognize accomplishments, so that we don't feel like, oh, I can't get anything done. I can't get everything done at one time. That's certainly true. But what I can do is I can do what I need to do today, this week, to move me closer and closer to my purpose. And as long as I'm doing that, then I'm not wandering down that dark path that has its own trajectory, really downhill, and you close your eyes and you just, before you know it, you're where you don't want to be.
Yeah, you end up getting out of control, and that's something that we're trying to keep people from getting to that point. Because when you're out of control, you hit that magnetic path as to where you end up going in one direction and one direction only. It's not a good thing. It really isn't. If you don't commit yourself to suicide or worse, to the point as to where you're going to end up taking your own life, it can be worse. It can be worse because there's been times as to where I've committed myself to suicide, and you can see I'm still here, and I've went through a whole lot of torturous days afterwards, because there was that whole aspect of it as to where it didn't work, and therefore I wanted to, but it didn't work, and then next thing you know, then what do you do? And the reason why I bring that up, it's not just to talk about me. 90% of attempted suicides that are out there are not successful. Now, some people would say, well, that means that they're not doing it right, and that they're just looking for attention and everything like that. I will not say that, because I know what it is that I've done. I know how lethal of an option that I chose, and I'm still here. I believe that I'm here because of a purpose, and I believe that it's a purpose that was not mine to begin with. It was my higher power, and my higher power is God and His Son Jesus Christ. But it was a purpose, and now I have decided to take that purpose and bring it to others, because I believe that the message that was given to me was meant not just for myself, but for a whole lot of people out there. So that's what we're really going to be talking about. And, we're going to be talking about a number of different things with, people that we've talked with. We just got done with a series for chronic illness. We're going into another series regards to chronic pain. We're hitting into the holiday season. Unfortunately, the holiday season is one of the most active times as to where people start thinking about taking their own life. And so we don't want to miss out on that opportunity in order to be able to make sure that we get to people before we get to that point.
Yeah, holidays, especially in the northern hemisphere up here, because in addition to the holidays, which families getting together, so you have a lot of family pressure on you, the seasons are changing to where we're getting into our winter. Yeah. So it's darker earlier, it's darker longer, there's a lot less natural light, and that affects a lot of people. I know it affects me. Down in the southern hemisphere, our friends in Australia, they're having the same family pressures, but now they're getting into their hot season, right? It's summer down there. But up here, I know that I'm feeling it already. The days changing, and that sort of, it's just, where is this depression coming from, or where is this? There's a sapping of energy. There's a lack of motivation, and it takes effort to sort of buck up and say, okay, I got this purpose that I really want to work toward. Because it's not that it's a job or it's like a hassle. It's one of those things that I know that as I work toward it, I feel better when I do.
Right.
And that's sort of that's the insidious nature of the depression, is it stops me from doing the things that I like doing.
Absolutely.
I know that it's getting worse when things that I enjoy doing, things that I like doing, things that are meaningful to me, that no longer capture my interest, and it's and so I just end up not doing it. But I do realize that if I fight through it and don't try and do it all at once, maybe just take smaller bites, but take bites, take smaller steps, but take steps to actually do something does work to kind of keep me on that trajectory, because then when I feel like I'm not going anywhere, if I feel like I'm just spinning my wheels, when I start giving into that depression, I can challenge it and say, I could say that, but I have done this, this, and this, and this. And sometimes it's a small list. Sometimes the list is just, well, I did take a shower today. I did put on a clean shirt. Sometimes it's a small thing, depending on how bad the depression is. But other times it's like, well, maybe I didn't get the website, exactly the way I wanted it to this week, but I did add this and this and this feature. I did clean up the code here, here, and here. So I'm actually making some progress there. So I can, at least nod and say I am doing something. So I can't beat myself up for doing nothing, and try and look for that positive spin. Is take that crisis, recognize it as a challenge, but then see the opportunity in there that and in this case, an opportunity for celebration in some cases, but sometimes it's an opportunity to learn something new.
Well, I mean, here's a reality for you. We had to postpone this show that was scheduled to air last week to now. And the reason being is because we haven't been 100%. I've not been 100%. I've been struggling for the better part of a month and a half now. There's been a number of reasons for that. I've had an anniversary of a passing of a very good friend, my best friend really, and on the 13th of September. And then we had 9/11. I had my situation of which I had my history with 9/11. And a number of different things. Also, it was also an anniversary of one of my attempts that I had done. So there's a number of different things that are going on within my mind that are trying to keep me down. And let me tell you how it is that I feel. Now, everybody sits there and they see me when I talk to them and everything like that, and they're like, "Where do you get your energy from? Where how is it that you're able to do all the things that you do?" And honestly, it's like, I really don't know. I just keep going until I crash. And when I crash, it used to be very, very dangerous, because I would really just go into this funk of where things were just not going right. Well, at this time, it's like I didn't totally crash, but I've definitely been struggling over the past month. And it's very difficult. And like you said, there are certain things that I do that just get me over the hump, as to where it's like, okay, I can do this. I can promote this show, or I can get Blog Talk situated, for the radio network. I can do the script for this show. I can do a number of different things that can just push me over to where it's like, okay, I feel accomplishment. I feel like I've accomplished something, which gives the value and that self-esteem for me to be able to make it through. But in the meantime, I've been falling out earlier than what I normally do. I wake up very early because I get about 4 or 5 hours sleep at most. So I've been struggling, and I've been dealing with a lot of different things. But it's like, just like I promote, as a life coach, I try to do the things that it is that I would tell somebody to do, and that is to try to make sure to value myself, to value what it is that I do, and be real with it, and then be able to bring it around to the point as to where, when I get my breath, when I get my second wind, next thing you know, all right, here we go, and I'm not there yet, but I'm getting better. But that just goes to show you that's the reality of the situation, man. I've always said that one of the reasons why this show is as attractive as it is because we're transparent, and people can identify with that. And so, I can identify with the audience that go through what it is that I go through.
Yeah, we didn't just give up and do nothing. That's it. We weren't able to get the show out last week, and so it got pushed a week out. But it wasn't like we did nothing for a week. We couldn't do what we wanted to get this show out in the form that we wanted. But we did Blog Talk Radio this week. That Monday night, so Sunday night we couldn't get the show out. We could have just taken the week off and said, "Okay, that's it." But we didn't. Said, "No, we get on to the next thing. We're keeping as much that we can do," and we did a great show on expectation. We expected to host the show together, and
holy cow,
hour-long show, and 15 minutes into it, I got disconnected. I couldn't come back. I couldn't get back on the line. Couldn't get back on the air. So for last 45 minutes, you did a great job carrying that by yourself. I think it bodes well for the radio network that in a moment there that you need it, you can actually do a show for an hour if you have to. It would have been a lot easier, I'm sure. You have to have somebody else who can talk in between the gaps, so that you can have gaps, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but we did that. We also got the website on the way going for Speaking to the Heart.org.
Right.
So Arisen Strength is a .com and Speaking to the Heart is a .org. So we'll make sure that we're careful with that with everybody. But we're getting that going at least a little bit. We could have just said, no, well, we don't want that. No, we're getting that going a little bit. Doing everything, like I said, to get the radio network itself up and running, and going back and backfilling this show. We put that show off for a week, but we didn't get rid of it. We're going to continue on and soldier on, because we have this purpose down there that's kind of like this, that beacon, that lighthouse, that is something that attracts us. And as long as we're moving in that direction, we can at least say, well, I didn't get everything done I wanted to get done, but I got some things done.
And you bring up a great point, and that is one of the things that happens when we're into a state as to where we feel depressed enough in order to think about taking one's life. It doesn't take much in order to be able to push us off the edge. It's called a trigger, really. I mean, I can tell you I've been in situations as to where I've been triggered enough to where I was just laying in my bed and I was just waiting for the next trigger to go, because the very next one I was going to be on my way. And I've had days as to where that trigger came and I went into action. I've also had days as to where that trigger never came. And it was a very strange feeling. It was like, okay, is it going to happen? And it never came. So it was one of those things as to where, all right, well, I made it through that day. You mentioned Monday. Now, we talked about expectations, and it was kind of funny how it kind of turned out. But one of the things that I'll say is that, like I said, it doesn't take much in order to be able to push somebody off the edge. So when you're sitting there and you get strife, or when you get adversity, a lot of people back down. A lot of people, it doesn't, it's like, oh God, here we go again. And then they end up just, kind of suppressing themselves from that adversity that came along. For me, that night on Monday, I was not feeling well at all. I didn't have a sore throat, but I had a scratchy throat. I was exhausted. My mind wasn't 100%, and it's like, and we talked about it, and I was bringing my good friend Wayne along with me so that we could, go back and forth, because we can cover an hour, every day. It doesn't matter. But it turned out that Wayne ended up being knocked off of the network for a bit. And next thing I know, I'm all by myself. I was expecting to have two people with me, and I ended up with zero. So I ended up having to carry it, and I was able to do that. And you know what? That built me up. That gave me accomplishment. That gave me value, knowing that I could take it over. Be honest with you, halfway through, I'm like, oh, we're got to cut this short. I can't make this go another half hour. There's just no way. But I pushed through. I pushed through. I just said, okay, talk another 5 minutes. If you could talk another 5 minutes, let's see how it goes. And then next thing, another thing came up into my head, because I had to come up with different ideas in my head that I wasn't planning on coming up with. But the thing is that I just pushed through just a little bit. Next thing I know, at the end, I was rushing through things in order to make sure that we got them into the show before it ended. So, and when that was done, was I feeling a whole lot better? No, I wasn't physically, but I sure was mentally. I was like, okay, I got through that. I got through that adversity. Adversity makes us stronger. Now, I know that that's easy to say, but the reality of the situation is that it does. What the old saying is, what doesn't kill us makes us stronger. Well, I don't like pushing it that far, but it's a reality that it does make us stronger. So when you start feeling some adversity, when you start feeling some pushback towards you, don't just lay back down and don't just sit there and say, oh my God, I can't take it anymore. No, try to stand your ground, try to stand and just do the little bit that you can. One thing that I've said, I don't know how many times this month and a half that I've been going through, I do what I can when I can. And that's the little bit that I can for that moment, for that hour, for that day, to be able to get me through that day and get into the next day. And that makes a big difference in life. That's what starts really making things happen, to where now you got a foundation, now you got some strength to you, and next thing you know, you can start now turning the thought, the power of turning the thought, and that's when things start happening.
Yeah, that reminds me, there's a great Winston Churchill quote. It says, if you're going through hell, keep going.
Yeah, right.
And then there's just a lot of, it's kind of a pithy little, kind of funny, but there's a lot of truth to it, because if you think about it, if you're going through hell and you get yourself into a situation like that, and if you start shutting down, you're shutting yourself down right there in the middle of it.
Totally.
And how is that going to improve the situation? So you just, okay, things are going a little off the rails, but I'm just going to keep going the best I can for now, and it's try to get to a comfortable stopping point. In the case of the Blog Talk show, it was really just a matter of getting to the end of the hour,
yeah,
and then we could sort out whatever the issues were can be sorted out later on. But in that moment, the only thing was like, okay, I just got to keep it going for just to the top of the hour, and then we can get out, and then we can regroup and figure out, okay, what happened? Can we fix that? Can we, but not to do that in that moment, or panic or shut down. It was going through hell, keep going, and you find a natural stopping point. Sometimes you surprise yourself and you get all the way through, and whatever the issues were clear themselves up. And next time, and it's not a problem, that's always a possibility. You're keeping yourself open to good things happening, as long as you're taking that challenge and using it as an opportunity to, as you were referring to, using the adversity as an opportunity to gain some strength, to prove to yourself that you can do it. It's a workout line, right? No pain, no gain. You see these guys in the gym, the gals in the gym, when they're exercising, they're actually pushing themselves, right? It's, as you do a few reps, but you're pushing yourself to the point where when you think you can't do anymore, that's when you start doing some more. Right. It's that adversity, that pain. It's those stretch goals. It's those things those are the things that are going to kind of expand our own value, really.
Well, when you start measuring, when I used to work out quite a bit, and when you start measuring like your heart rate, okay, there's a certain rate that you have to get to in order for your workout to be effective for you. Joelle will tell you this all the time. But, and normally, it's after you start laboring, because you're physically tired and your heart's just not even in it yet, and that's what I'm saying. Things can really, really change for the better if we can get through that challenging time, because it's one of those things. When that heart starts jumping in, that's when things really start kicking in. That's when all of a sudden your body's like, all right, hey, I can do another set. Hey, I can do another, 10 minutes, 15 minutes on the incline, whatever it is that you're doing. Let me tell you something. Reality here, okay? If I very well could have said, okay, we need to cut this show short because there's no way I can carry it for the whole hour, which, by the way, Wayne came in 2 minutes after, 2 minutes before it was ending. So it was one of those things. He says, I think I'm back now. I'm like, thanks a lot. You know, but you know, the thing is that if I had shut it down, which I had every right to do, I had every right to say, okay, look, things just weren't working out this day. We're going to shut it down early. I had every right to do that. If I did that, here's what would have happened. I would have ended up being worse for the wear doing that, because I would have ended up saying I couldn't accomplish it. I couldn't have finished it. How in the world am I going to run a radio network that we're going to do every day of the week and sit there and say, well, no, I'm going to cut it short if I don't feel well, or whatever the case. So, you know, there was a lot of things. Plus, and I mentioned this in the past, I have a very difficult time with self-loathing. I have this is something that's followed me since I was very, very young. And, you know, it would jump on me. It would be I'd be sitting there in my bed, you know, exhausted and tired, and sitting there and saying, okay, I can't, you know, I just don't want to do it anymore. Well, my mind ain't done yet, because my mind will sit there and say, you think that you're going to do a network? You think that you're going to do this for a living? You think that you're going to be able to help other people, and you can't even do it yourself? Okay? This is the type of thing that would be going on in my head, which would make things a heck of a lot worse than what it is that it would need to be. And you know, so adversity is tough, but it's also a good thing.
Yeah, and it kind of brings up that difference between pain and suffering.
Yeah.
Those are like two little words, and at least in my mind, the way I think about it, to me, the suffering is the needless pain. That pain can be a good thing, because pain is a sign that there's something going on.
Sure.
It's a sign of growth. I mean, growing pains. You know, it could be pain, could be a sign of don't touch that.
Yeah.
You know, so pain. There's a message in the pain. And if you're tuned into what that message is, which it might be, you're getting the value from your workout, that could be the message, or it could be, you know, don't touch the stove. But if you react to that pain appropriately, then you don't suffer. The suffering is that part where you find yourself in pain and you're not learning from the pain, you're not listening to the pain, you're not paying attention to the pain, you're just in the pain. And then the pain now becomes the focus, and now you're suffering, and it might end up being where you kind of, some people manage to turn that pain off, but when you turn that pain off, now you've made yourself all that much more vulnerable, because you don't have any pain receptors.
You turn off everything.
And yeah, you know, you look at, you know, some of these, you know, something like a leprosy. You know, I think of this is a great example, because it's the same with diabetes. They have it at the at the extremities.
Yeah.
What's that called? Necropsy.
Yeah. Okay.
Where the nerves start dying.
Necrosis.
So necrosis. Yeah. So you stop feeling at the tips of your fingers and your pain at the toes, and you end up getting, you know, cuts. They get infected. You never notice them. You know, and then so you say, you know, a lot of people with leprosies are a common one, where like people's fingers and fall off and toes fall off, and it's not that the disease is making them fall off, but what's happening is the disease is interrupting your ability to feel pain. Right. And when you don't feel pain, now you're vulnerable to much worse things that can happen to you that you don't even know that they're happening to you, because you're not paying attention to them. Right. So adversity is one of those things. Pay attention to your adversity. It's telling you something. It might be telling you that, hey, what you're doing is the right thing to do. You know, you're studying for an exam, and it is hard sometimes to study, but that's a good thing, because that means you're learning. If I was taking a course and I learned nothing in the course, what value was that? You know, I want to push myself a little bit, whether it's physically, whether it's mentally, whether it's spiritually. You know, really feel that I'm actually accomplishing something, because it's a little different today than it was yesterday. It's growing, and yeah, that's it.
You know, and let's face it, we've got friends who have conditions that have chronic pain. You know, good friends of mine, you know, at Power of Pain organization, you know, they're doing a number of things in regards to chronic related pain and nerve pain. And look at what our good friend Christina was talking about. You know, what it is that she was going through. For the things that it is that she's felt the pain, she's felt agony, and she won't even tell you. You know, and I'm not trying to say, you know, go to the extreme as to where you don't acknowledge the fact that you have pain by any means. What I'm trying to say is that one of my mentors in my life said that we are all specially and uniquely made. And a lot of people will sit there and say, I'm not like I used to be. And they start saying that, and they just say that as if like it's just a natural thing. I'm not like I used to be because of what it is that I go through. And I'm like, okay, well, let me ask you a question. What did you used to do when you used to be who you were? And, you know, the majority of stuff would not be physical. The majority of stuff would be mental. The majority of stuff would be, well, you know, it's like I was good at my job. I was good at, I was a good drawer. I was a good artist. I was a musician. I was this. I was that. I was this. And it was like, okay, well, you can still do that, you know. And they're like, no, there's no way. You don't understand. I go through this. I have, you know, I go through this on a daily basis. I'm exhausted. You know, it's like I'm in 8, 9, 10 pain all day long, every day. You know, and it's like, okay, I get that. But what is it that you can do? Because once, and this is what Arisen Strength was built on, was the fact that the dreams, the talents, the capabilities are within us already. That's not for me to find. That's yours. That's your individual thing. And so it's already within you. The problem is that whatever the challenge that you have, whatever the suppressed situation that you have, has made it so that it's distant and sometimes non-existent. And so we need to be able to get you to the point as to where you start feeling that again, as to where you start utilizing that again. You know, so I mean, I've got a good friend of mine who, unfortunately, because of his mental condition, you know, I mean, he's lost a lot of things that he used to do. He used to be in a band. He used to be a tremendous artist. You know, I mean, he used to do a whole lot of different things, but because of his mental condition, he feels that he can't do that anymore. Well, guess what? When he did a drawing, it was pretty damn good. Now, it may not be to his standard, and I understand that part, but the thing is that now we need to we're not doing it just in order to be the best that we can be. We're doing it in order to build ourselves up, in order to be able to make ourselves stronger. Who's to say that after practicing for a little while, that he can't get better than what it is that he was today? You know, and so that's what I'm trying to say is to be able to get your mindset to where it makes a difference in your life. That's the whole emphasis of Arisen Strength, is to be able to say, you are so much more than the challenges that you face. And that includes when you start thinking about taking your own life. And that's hard for people to grasp, but it's true.
Yeah, we talk about kick the can't.
Yeah.
Right? Kick the can't. And the big part of that is, one, accepting the things that you can't do.
Right.
You know, we all are on our own journeys. We all have our own limitations. There are certain things that some of us can't do, and it's okay to acknowledge them.
Sure.
But it's acknowledge them, but now turn the thought to the things I can do. Don't get focused on what you can't do. Acknowledge it. So I can't do that. Okay, well then for now I won't worry about that. Since I can't do it, why worry about it? What can I do? And let me focus on what I can do. And Lupus Diva there, she gave a real good story about her physical conditioning. You know, here she is, physical trainer. You see pictures of it. This woman's in shape.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
But she is not up to where she was before, you know, the lupus really started taking a toll on her. And the number she threw out was 70%. Mm-hmm. She's about 70% now of what she was before. So that's, for now, that's her new 100. She just recalibrates and says, okay, I don't have to be all the way back to what I was then. at least not right now. I know what I can do now. And all you do is listen to her, talk to her, see her. She's not picking a low ball number and saying, "Oh, I can do 30%," and that's no. She is pushing herself at 70%. She's getting results at 70%, and I think part of that might also be a little distortion. I think she's probably really close back to her 100%, and she's just telling herself it's at 70%. But there's this mindset of don't get bogged down on, oh, I can't do what I can't do it, so I'm not going to do anything. It's okay. I'm not 100%. Now I got to move on. What am I? I'm 70%. Okay, well, I'm going to hit that 70%.
And she holds herself accountable.
And she holds herself accountable to that. And then she pushes beyond that limit there. So it's finding what we can do, focusing on the can. It's kicking the can.
Sure. And, look, people are going to say, okay, well, how am I supposed to build my value? Well, okay, here's where we're going to get to on the show. You want to do the little things. This is where the little things make a big, big difference. If you have a number of things that you have to do, we talked about it on Monday, or I talked about it on Monday, which was, we were talking about how to break down our schedule, how to break down the number of things that we need to get done and break it down into 4 quarters. Okay. So you have your things that you need to do. Like you need to go to your doctor. You need to, get your driver's license situated or whatever the situation that you need to get done. Okay. That's that category. Then you've got the things that you want to get done. Okay. Well, there's that category. That's going to be a long list, right? All right. Then there's the things of which you should get done. Now, I don't use the word should, but I'm trying to be reality to the point as to where, the average person is going to say, I should get this done. Almost to a have to, right? And then there's the other quarter of which we're going to talk about. Now, the thing is that, and this comes from Tony Robbins, and he's an amazing inspiration in my world and a whole lot of people. But the thing is that you want to go ahead and you want to do what you need to get done. You want to break that down into priorities so that you can get 20 to 25% of that list done. Okay? Then and when you want to get done, well, you take one thing out of that want to and you put it into the need. All right? The things that you should get done, and again, that's your word, not mine. All right? Take one thing out of that list and put it into your need. Now, here's the fourth list. The fourth list is all the stuff that doesn't have to get done today, and you can set it up for tomorrow. You can schedule it for tomorrow. See, it sounds simple because it's a simple process. It's very difficult to do. But once you start managing your life that way, you start getting things done. You start getting things accomplished. You start feeling the value of what it is that you can get done. I know there are people out there that go through a whole lot of pain, a lot of anguish, a lot of anxiety, exhaustion. I know that you go through that. I go through it myself. Wayne goes through it at his times too. So, it's like, but keep doing something. Get something done. Get something to the point as to where you're in control. You're still there. And above all the things that you need to get done, do something for yourself. Start rewarding yourself. See, that's the thing. A lot of people think, well, I need to get done, and therefore, well, that's something that I should get done, and that's something that I shouldn't have to, reward myself for. Nonsense. Reward yourself, for crying out loud. Here's the thing. Once you start rewarding yourself, your body's not dumb. Your body's going to say, hey, wait a minute. Hey, we're getting a reward here. We want to get something done here. It's like the dog. The dog will sit there and say, hey, wait, oh, I get a bone? Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, I'll roll over, or I'll play dead, or what. It's like whatever I need to do to get that bone, I'm happy. Same thing with humans. I mean, it's like reward yourself. And I'm not saying go out of your way extremely, but that's not a bad thing every once in a while. But reward yourself for the small things that you do too, because that makes a big difference. It starts making you start feeling like you're worth something. It starts giving you that want to. Let me tell you something. Hashtag life is worth living. I didn't just come up with that out of nowhere. Okay? And somebody else might have come up with it. I don't really care. When I came up with it, and the reason why I came up with it was exactly for this purpose, was to be able to tell people, hashtag your life is worth living. Because and when I say living, I don't mean existing. I'm talking about living. Reward yourself for the little things that you do. Hey, take time with your family. Don't do all that you can so that you can go to work. That's what I do. It's like I shouldn't be, it's the pot calling the kettle black. But all your efforts go towards work, and then you come home and you're exhausted and you can't do anything. I mean, yeah, you're getting something done for work. Great. I'm sure they love you for it. What's it doing for you? Because I got news for you. We don't work to live. We don't live to work. We work so that we can live. And so this is what we're trying to do. We're trying to get people to realize that you mean something for what it is, and not to me. Although you mean something to me, it's to you. Once you start feeling it, then all of a sudden it's just like we started talking about before. It's that heart rate. When that heart rate starts getting into it, that's when things really start happening. That's when your body starts kicking in. Yes, it's going to be in pain. Yes, it's going to be tired. Yes, it's going to have anxiety. But it's going to keep going along with what it is that you're doing. And over time, it'll really make a big difference. And that's what we're trying to get done here.
I don't know if you've been following this story. It's been going on for a couple of months now. I think I might mention it to you. The fat guy across America.
Oh, the one that's riding the bike?
Yeah, here's this guy. Yeah. He's from Indiana, I think. 579 pounds. Yeah. We'll go back into the summertime. And he, almost 600 pounds, not a specimen of health by any stretch of the imagination. He lost his job. He's out of work. He was having trouble finding a job, problems at home. The guy was married, and his wife was leaving him. So he found himself essentially homeless, sleeping on a friend's couch, no job, no wife, no life in some sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
In order to find value for himself, he got this idea. Yeah, I don't want to question anybody's ideas, but I'm going to ride a bicycle across the United States. Okay, this guy doesn't ride a bicycle. He's been doing it now. It's been going on for a couple of months now. He doesn't. I don't know if he rides every single day or how far he rides every day, but he's slowly making some progress. He's a couple weeks ago he got 20 miles in a day for the first time. Now his next goal, he's trying to get up to 25 miles. He was just this week in Philadelphia, and he ran up the Rocky Stairs. And there was a press thing out there, some media out there, and friends cheering him on. But 2 months ago, he wouldn't have been able to run up these stairs, let alone ride his bicycle 20 miles and then run up the stairs. His wife is joining him on the trip now. They're kind of getting some things worked out, and she hasn't been able to ride with him every single day that they've been making the progress. She had to go in the hospital. She had some medical stuff that she had to get taken care of, but she's out there a lot with him, riding with him, really joining in with the celebration with him as he starts to ride his bicycle across the U.S., and he's under 500 pounds now. So he started out 579. Now he's in the 400s. By the time, who knows how long it's going to take him to get to California. He's in Philadelphia now. He went to New York City a week or so ago. Before that, he was in Connecticut. He's making his progress slowly, a couple miles a day, 15 miles a day, 20 miles a day. He's going to get to 25 miles a day. Eventually, he may be hitting that 50 miles. Who knows? He may even get to 100 miles a day. The sky's the limit on that.
That's when the heart kicks in.
But this is this idea out there. I'm going to ride a bicycle across the U.S., but he's not trying to do it in one day.
Yeah, absolutely.
He has a goal. He has this, and it might not. He might not ever reach that. He might stop, even if he stops almost any time now. He's done so much. That's one of these things about these goals is these goals, because you take the minor celebrations along the way. It's not a do or die. It's not a pass fail. It's not an all or nothing. It's a purpose. It's a goal. It's something that's leading me.
Yeah.
But I have to focus on the day-to-day stuff. So he does have to focus each day. He's sleeping in tents. And I think, I haven't been following it day to day, but I get the feeling that sometimes he goes back home to Indiana for a weekend to recoup, and then he manages to get back out to where he was, where we live off, here. And then he has a tent though, and he's sleeping. Lots of pictures of him on the internet, sleeping out in tents, making his little progress.
Yeah, and you tell me that he hasn't had any adversity.
Yeah.
Seriously. I mean, I can't think about riding from where we live to go to California. I mean, I don't see it. But but if it was, believe me, if I thought it was a purpose, I would do it. But I would have a whole lot of adversity to it. And let me tell you something. We were talking about Speaking to the Heart Network. You have that picture there for the show. I got news for you. We didn't choose Speaking to the Heart just out of the blue. The reason why we chose Speaking to the Heart is because when the heart starts kicking in, that's when things really start happening. And so we utilize Speaking to the Heart network to be able to help people be able to get out of that cycle that they're in. And that goes doubly for when it comes to this situation when we're talking about taking our own life. We're trying to take you out of that cycle. We're not only trying to take you out of the cycle for when it is that you're thinking about doing it. We're trying to take you out of the cycle way before then. We're trying to build you up to where it is that you can start seeing that things are different than what they used to be. You are better than what you were the day before and the day before that. And that's the whole idea of what it is that we try to do here. We're not trying to do this just as a business and just so that we can hear ourselves talk. We are utilizing the experiences that we have from our own challenges, our own struggles that we've gone through, and we're trying to utilize them in order to be able to help other people out. And so we've done that. Did you ever think that we were going to have a radio network?
No.
When we started this, we are so far ahead of where it is that I thought that we were going to be, at this time. I mean, at this time, we'd still be at, keep on going through Google Hangout and everything like that. I wouldn't have been surprised if we were there, but we have grown. We have had our adversity, and we grew because of it. And it ended up we had a purpose. We had value. We knew that those two things were going to keep us going, and we're going to be able to be strong. And we ended up getting a lot stronger than what it is that we even ever had thought of in the first place. And now look at us. Now we've got a great show with Arisen Strength. We've got a great production. We've got a great following when it comes to what it is that we're doing. My speaking career is starting to get off to where it needs to be. And now we've got a radio network. We got a radio network that's sitting there, that's out there to help people. It's not just to hear my voice talk. Believe me, I can talk to myself all day long. But this here is to utilize all our assets, to utilize Lupus, Diva May, Joelle, Angela Harding, Josephine Coco, Wayne the Hacker when it comes to random access, and when it comes to accountability group, of which he and I are going to be doing. There's a whole lot of things that we're doing and that we're putting into play. That is to be there for people to be able to count on and to be able to hold on to while they're going through what it is that they're going through. And you don't have to go through what it is that we went through. I mean, you don't have to be depressed. You don't have to have chronic illness. You don't have to have anything like that. You don't have to have that in order for this show, for this network, in order to be helpful for you. This network will make anybody better than they were the day before and the day before that. And that is the whole point of what it is that we do. And, that's a good way to end it for this show because, we've been talking about this. We're going to continue to talk about it. Like Wayne said, we've got 4 segments when it comes to hashtag life is worth living. And, value is a big, big part of it. And I'm sure that we're going to be talking a whole lot more when it comes to the next show that we do, which is Arisen Strength Extra, which is going to be on what date? It's a Thursday, which is going to be
28th?
29th.
29th?
Yep. 29th. On 29th is the Arisen Strength Extra show.
We may be in Halloween costumes. Throw that out there.
Okay, he may be in a Halloween costume. I will see. But anyways, and then we've got a whole other series that we're going to be talking about, which is going to be chronic pain related, because we want to be able to help out as much as possible that we can with that. And we're just going to keep on doing what it is that we do. And the reason why we do that is because we have a purpose in our lives that we feel is necessary in order to be able to bring out, to be able to help others. And that's really what it's all about. So for now, I'm Shane Schultz. He's Wayne the Hack Hacker. Folks, live life with purpose. Good night, everybody.
Good night. We'll see you in Chatsy.